20 years cannot be just business as usual, where we come to Nyayo with candles and we go back, because we do that every February. Sometimes we also do that every June during the International Torture Day. So these 20 years should be a year of also claiming some serious milestones. I think we have made a lot of achievements, but these 20 years moving forward, there must be a new conversation about what we are going to do.
Nyayo House is another way of engaging in a campaign against torture, and to see to it that torture is eliminated in this country.
And that is what we're doing here today. You cannot allow the memory to die. If it dies, if you forget, the generation that is present here today will not even appreciate what it has cost you to enjoy some of the freedoms, some of the liberations that you're sitting in enjoying in today. So if you forget that there are people who suffered sexual violence, there are people who suffered torture, there's people who went into those chambers. If you forget that, then the history of Kenya will not be written properly, and the blood of those that was shed will go unnoticed. But what these men went through, when they were stripped naked, when they were told to open their legs, when they were told to hold their own members, to hold their own organs, for female officers to inspect, or for female officers to manhandle their members or their bodies, they did not tell you, and they did not share that shame that they experienced. So this should be as a memory. This should be as a lesson to us all Kenyans. And specifically, I'm so overjoyed that some of you who have attended today are really a young generation, and that you're seeing that all those who are seated have got white hair.
It hasn't been easy. I experienced arrest, as I was arrested and questioned on the 7th of August 1990, and I still remember it up to today. I was taken to Langata police station. I stayed there for 4 days, and then Nyayo House, where I was questioned by so many men, about 12 of them, for about 6 hours. Then taken to search my then office, which was University of Nairobi. I was an employee there. The questions were associated to my place of work, about who I knew, who was against the government, why we were taught about Karl Marx. An occasion like today is very important, and maybe we wrote a book, some of us, called We Lived to Tell. Maybe many of us should also write individually about what happened, or whatever the government was doing to the people at the torture chambers, so that our children, or in the future, people not to forget.
This question about memory and memorialization, utakuta in history, many countries, they have to contend, like my colleague said, you have to contend with your past. Lazima uangalie nyuma, ni nini ilifanyika nyuma. Because the past, the present, and the future, normally they are very much interrelated. Kumekuwa na discourse, imekuwa ikiitwa transitional justice in this country, ambayo ilikuwa wakati wa TJRC. As a reparative measure, kulikuwa mambo ya apology. Serikali kama ya Uhuru ilifanya, it offered a public apology. The Chief Justice then also offered a public apology on behalf of the judiciary, because most of the violations were taking place through the judiciary. So there was now apology, guarantees non-repetition. Hizo guarantees non-repetition tumekuwa tukisema, kuna prosecutions, kuna compensation, kuna ziko nyingi sana mechanisms, lakini memorialization as a reparative measure ilikuwa imetajwa tu, lakini it has never been taken seriously. Na ukitembea katika nchi nyingi sana duniani, utakuta kama ni Ujerumani, ambapo kulikuwa na serious historical violations, kule Chile, Argentina, utakuta South Africa, utakuta yale mambo yalikuwa yanafanyika wakati huo sasa ndio vijana vizazi vya sasa wanaweza enda wakaona wakasoma katika makavazi yao ya memorialization. Kama ni jela moja ilikuwa inaitwa Worcester Square kwa mfano pale South Africa, utakuta hata ile Land Rover, wale wenzetu walikuwa wanabebwa na Land Rover ya special branch. Tungependa sana hiyo Land Rover, kwa sababu Land Rover takes time to rot, but inajulikana mahali iko. Hiyo Land Rover ingekuwa hapo Nyayo House chini.
My dad was detained twice. The first one was 1982, and they were detained for about 8 years, I think so. And the torture was too much. He could, when he was released from the first detention, he could tell us the story that they were going through. So after the first detention, he came back, and then they started fighting for the second liberation, which was again taken back to the detention. During that period, it was hell. Our family suffered. My mother could not be able to pay school fees for us. And I remember when they came for my dad's second detention, it was a very horrific. Things happened. Actually, they were looking for weapons. So many CIDs came to our home. They were digging the house, looking for those weapons. They were digging along the fence. I don't know. It was such a moment that you wouldn't like your father to go through. He stayed for another 2 years. I think it was another 2 years. And by the time he was going back, I was to join Form 1, and we didn't have school fee. He tried pleading with the government, but nothing was done. But I just pray that the impact my father's detention has impacted us negatively, our family. It has been, we passed through a lot. I just pray that one day we'll find justice for all that my dad went through. Thank you.
This generation is now learning that there was a time when you could not mention Karl Marx and talk about Marxism. Nowadays, that is, you go to any justice center, you'll hear someone calling themselves proudly Marxist-Leninist. There was a time that was very, very serious crime. So it is good to appreciate that the people who are there before us, we must appreciate, we must recognize them. And when you are talking about the history, it is very sad that all these people that who are in this room, we've not heard anything about them when you were in school. Did you? Kuna mtu amaisikia Wachira ukisoma GHC, ilikuwa inaitwa GHC ama history. So that shows that our history is, I usually say, it does not exist. Because what then do we study when the real history of people who are still alive, who fought for democracy? So I'm very happy that we have amongst us the social justice centers, we have the students' movement. This should not just be an event that after this, we'll go back and say, tukutane next year, Nyayo House. We must come up with a very clear plan. So we have to think of the new ways of doing activism. Nowadays, we have podcasts. Those people who do podcasts, can we have these stories so that the current generation who love listening to podcasts can get the gist of utetezi, the social media. How many of these stories can we use in our social media pages? We draw graffiti. Can we have some of these people in our graffiti?
What are we doing? If you were there those days 20 years ago, would we have acted differently? Are the problems they were struggling with still current? Kenya now we are very okay.
I find it is the height of paradox of successive governments to talk of colonial misrule and torture, but forget that amongst their midst exist celebrated tormentors and mutilators of history.
There is no day that people will stop struggling. Every day there's an alive struggle, and so we need to have a constant structure of organizing. Ya kwamba hii struggles itakuwa, maybe they can mutate from one form to another, but even organizing needs to be constant. Olala has been going to the streets, I think, for the last 5 years, constantly every day. But going to the street is not easy. You see, people like you can say, saizi nyinyi mko na kazi kidogo tu sana ya kufanya maandamano. Enzi yetu hata kufanya maandamano ilikuwa ngumu and everything, even writing something or even talking to the government directly. We've been trying these forms of organizing and everything, and we're saying, you're seeing these challenges. And we're asking our elders, mko wapi? You see, for example, if you people come together and just do one press conference condemning the financial bill 2023, it will be more powerful than we doing a series of protests in the communities and trying to attack the state, telling them that, you see, the cost of living may pick up and nini. So we also want a synergy from the olders living the struggle together with these young generations.
There are women in the struggle of the independence of this country who gave their bodies to the home guards, they posed as sex workers to go and extort information and steal weapons. We have never read that in our history. I'll be writing that book about the sex workers of Mau Mau because we need to tell the real story. The other thing is that people like General Nyayo, we just hear them. We need something like the monuments of the women nationalists in the struggle. We need a monument at Central Police Station for the generations to come to learn that there lived the great General Nyayo, who told the men that she's going to wear trousers if they're not going to fight for the struggle of this country. Mine is just a challenge that it's time we step up and document and tell the real stories. Thank you.
It's history that we never got to hear in school. During that last month also, when we were burying Muga, we got like a first-hand story of the role of women, the role that women played in the second liberation and also in the first liberation. When women got to street so that they can save the men who were fighting, when women got to do things that now are called morally wrong, to be able to bring us to what we are enjoying right now.
Tunapaswa pia kuwekwa ili tutangamane pamoja. Ningelipenda kuwaona social justice centers wa Nairobi wakitembelea kule mashinani kule Siaya, nasi pia kuwe facilitated na tuweze kujua ndugu zetu waliopo hapa Nairobi na hata kule Mombasa.
I think our presence here is a testimony that we really appreciate the past and we've really gotten the energy and the inspiration to continue with the struggle. So what has come out here, I think, clearly is that we need to safeguard the gains. And how are we going to safeguard the gains? We need to go back either to the concerned authorities or if possible even go back to court for the activation of the court orders. It has not been even easy accessing the Nyayo torture chambers because it has been declared as a protected area. And we don't think that being a protected area will allow us the freedom to always access that place. We have to go through so many administrative requests or permission to access Nyayo chambers. So we must challenge that particular decree or order to allow Nyayo chambers to be a place where we can access freely. The other thing that is very important is the need for documentation of the struggle. Wazee kesho watakuwa. So I think we need to take the earliest time possible to ensure that this story is consolidated for the current and future generation. And I think, as Madam has said, we need to rewrite this history because what we are taught in school does not reflect what we've actually gone through to get the freedom that we currently enjoy. Another important thing that has come is the need to create synergy between the old and the current generation. What is the role of the student movements, the academia, the young people who are suffering the brunt of mismanagement of this economy? If we keep on sitting back and waiting for miracles to happen, they will not happen. It's high time we have a very candid discussion and have a strong conviction to take things on our own hands. Let this conversation start here and go to the grassroots so that those who are not able to physically attend here also get to know that people really struggled for the freedom that we're enjoying today, and we need to safeguard it. Lest we forget, this Katiba will be changed and we might find ourselves going back to the days of the early 80s, the Nyayo era, when all the freedoms we're enjoying here were curtailed. Thank you very much and have a blessed afternoon.